All right. So I'll be giving this as a lightning talk version. If I can advance slides. My plan was I've given a talk on Python visualization libraries a long time ago, like 15 years ago. That should be easy to update because there are like 6 libraries and half of them are Matplotlib wrappers. Not really. Pyvis.org seems to be a very good resource. There are so many. That plan doesn't work. The revised plan is I'll show a few libraries and how I would choose from them, and maybe reminisce a little bit about Matplotlib. I'm a Matplotlib developer, so that's my default. It's the good old thing. There's so much to configure, but the problem it solves, the original problem is that people in university use MATLAB, and MATLAB is proprietary and expensive. Not for the university; they get a very good academic license, but then when you go to work in a company like Cactus, that they will suddenly have to pay huge amounts of money for the MATLAB license. So, so you want to use free and open source software. Numeric and NumArray and later NumPy solved a large part of MATLAB, but Matplotlib was needed for MATLAB-compatible plotting. That's why it's Matplotlib. This is the easy way to use Matplotlib, and all the documentation says this deprecated, don't do this. This is the easy way. This is the difficult way, which the documentation recommends. That's weird. So here's a typical Matplotlib plot. It looks like Matplotlib, right? So there's Seaborn, which is for statistical plots, and it solves the problem that with Matplotlib, it's a whole lot of work to do this, and with Seaborn, it's just a couple of lines. Then there are new wrappers. ProPlot looked promising, but it seems to be stalled. There's a new fork called UltraPlot, because the Matplotlib API is not the easiest. It's not the most Pythonic, and what you end up with is these 50-line blocks of code that you copy to every new project, because that's where you have the settings you like. So this is with UltraPlot. Look at that one line, adds this format color blue and width 2, setting all these lines blue and giving them width 2. I promise you this is not as easy in Matplotlib. You have to loop over the axes, and you have to set so many different things. And you know, this looks promising, but it's fairly new. Plotnine solves the problem of R envy. So people using R have ggplot2, which has the grammar of graphics, which is somehow better. Matplotlib does not have grammar of graphics. It has this clunky API. So Plotnine does this, and you know, I can't figure it out, but I'm sure there are people for whom this is the obvious way to do plotting. So you have so this is the mileage data set. The x-axis is cylinder displacement in the engine, and y-axis is highway mileage, I think. So that's the aesthetic display, and color class, somehow that goes into the aesthetic, but then you add geom points to say that you plot points, and then you do facet trap by 4-wheel drive, front-wheel drive, rear-wheel drive. That looks awesome. You just add a thing, and now it's faceted across. I mean, awesome, I suppose. I can't read it, and I especially can't write it, but it's much. I mean, I'm sure there are people for whom it's natural. Cartify solves the problem that base map is so hard to use. So you can use it to plot a map. There are so many libraries for plotting maps. I have no clue why, but separately it's a difficult problem. Yeah. Then there are 3D plots, because Matplotlib doesn't really do 3D. It does sort of fake 3D, but not really. So there are very different libraries for that. The- so here's a teapot, and the window didn't. Oh no, it's there. I'm trying to show you the teapot window. There it is. So you can't do this in Matplotlib. You get a teapot. I mean, but those are all really difficult libraries. But there are interactive plots like we heard about Bokeh, and the problem they solve is that Matplotlib does interaction like MATLAB did, and that's not really how people in this world with multi-touch devices and yeah. So there's like Bokeh and things, and if you want dashboards, there are lots of things. I wanted to mention the Python Software Foundation's Distinguished Service Awards started in 2012 with the award for John Hunter. Unfortunately, a posthumous award, he passed away that year. So he was the creator of Matplotlib. Back when I started developing Matplotlib 2006, it worked like this. You sent an email to John Hunter. Very nice. I committed this to Subversion. If you would like to work on it, I'll add you to the committers list. It was much easier to get involved in an open source project because the tools were much worse. That was Subversion. It's impossible to work in Subversion without being a committer. With Git, you just fork your own thing. But with Subversion, it's much worse. And then the style guidelines are these 3 lines. Classes are uppercase and attributes are lowercase, and functions are. It's a bit more difficult these days. These days it takes 2 reviews to get your patch accepted, and I mean, of course, it's an established library, and that they have to. Well, we have to make sure that we don't break anyone's 50-line blocks of code. But it was much more fun in 2006 when you just emailed John Hunter and he said, "Okay, you're a committer." Here's a tiny Easter egg in the Matplotlib PDF backend. PDF looks like this. It's mostly text. There's a comment that has some weird characters. Does anyone know why? Jussi, of course, knows why.
So the point of that is that they have some sort of like characters by which you can detect who created it, or you can do that.
Yes. So
Other characters detect it if it's being transported by FTP.
yes. So when the world was young and computers were just given by God to Abraham, or however it happened, there were text files and binary files, and they were separate. Even this day in Python, when you open a file for reading, you can specify text mode. That affects something, I suppose. So if you transferred your PDF file with FTP, the FTP client has to see some binary characters, or it goes into text mode and breaks your file. So that's the reason. So then the question is, how do you? You have to choose. It says at least 4 binary characters. So how do you choose 4 binary characters? So my solution was to choose the 2 bands that I like most that are expressible in hexadecimal. So AC/DC and ABBA. are in every Matplotlib PDF backend produced PDF file.
Noise.
Thank you.